Hey everyone, I'm going to put together this video as a brief touching base on doing the part two that's of the Excel work, task one, part two, as described in the analysis plan. So right here, I've opened up the part one, task one, part one Excel, where we have the clean data. And you should have this already. And so we have all these tabs, so I can right click on these and sorry, I tried to right click, there we go. So this is what we have so far. We have those listed in the analysis plan. So let's get that open. Okay, so these are the new variables that we're going to be adding. So I'm going to basically put these next to, so I'll have the analysis plan next to my Excel file. And I'm going to go back over to that clean data. And I want to make a copy of that. So I want to make sure I kind of protect, in a sense, or preserve this clean data that I've already made. I'm going to now be adding additional variables. So let's go ahead and just make a copy of that. So I right-clicked on the tab at the bottom. I'm going to click the box that says create a copy, and then I'm going to select move to the end. So we'll have that new one now. You can see the two. Now let's rename it. I'm going to call this data plus additional variables. And so now that we have this is where we're going to be adding additional variables on the right-hand side. So we're going to be adding in here, just looking over here at the list that I'm seeing in the analysis plan. I see percent change. And then I see the natural log of income. Then I see age. Then I see R, an F, an M. This is part of the RFM, the build for the RFM analysis. And then we have the income that we're going to bin in quartiles. So I'm going to call it income bin. Then I have membership. And this is the one where we're not 100% sure yet what we're going to use for our cutoffs. I was going to see what you guys came up with. And then we're going to create some race category reduction. RaceRed is what I called mine, but you can call it anything that you know what it means. And as long as it's in your analysis plan, once again, it is fine. So then I'm going to add female. That's going to be a dummy variable that I'm going to derive from sex, where male is the reference. And then I'm going to have several more dummy variables, all of these deriving from the categories in channel. So we're going to go to TV and SM and referral, with one F, and then other. And excuse me, I think we could possibly not confuse this other with other things. So I'm going to change this in the analysis plan. And this is fine. You can do stuff like this as you go. So this is other CH. So I just want to make sure that it's clear to me, since I'm going to be working with this, that other is not just some random other anything. It's other channel. Okay. So now I've put those all in here, and I pretty close to have them memorize what they mean, but you can always refer to your analysis plan. And now we just need to add these in one at a time. So you can figure that out. So the percent change is in your notes, and I'll let you program that one. The natural log of income is equals ln. Ln in Excel is for the natural log, and it's a natural log of income. So I'm just going to click on income, which is here on the same row, and close the parentheses, and I have the natural log of income. And now that I have that for that row, all I need to do is go ahead and double click that, and we will now have the natural log of all the values in income. The next one is age. And the age, if you recall, we can review that if you want. So let's review age from the analysis plan. So the age was the age as of the customers on January 1st, 2022. And if you recall, the data was, that's the day that the data was pulled from the computers at this company. So the function, and again, this is also in your notes. We went over this year when we were talking about data transformations, and I was showing you about converting dates. So this is done with YEARFRAC, and you can see it tells us the start date and the end date. So the start date is the birth date, and the end date is January 1st, 2022. And what I told you was we need to let Excel know that this is a date. And so to get Excel to understand the numbers that go in as a date, it's a good idea to use this function date. And you see it tells us the year, month, day. So we can say 2022, comma, January, we'll give it a 1. And then for day, we'll also give it a 1. So we'll close the date for that, and then we're going to close the YEARFRAC open parentheses for that function. And when we hit enter, we get that this person was 35 years old, 35.04 years old. And what we talked about in class is that people report their age, 35.04. They report their age usually without a decimal. People just say how many complete years they've lived. And what I told you is that there's a wrapper function that we can wrap all of this inside the function that will give us just the integer portion without rounding. So INT, and then is the function, and then we just need that closing parentheses. And again, I'm just putting space here in the formula bar for emphasis. Excel will ignore space. I'm putting that there so that you are able to see it more clearly. Okay, so we see that this person is 35, and then we can just use this formula to get everybody's age. And I'm going to center that just because it makes it a little bit easier to read. All right, R, F, and M, these are the quintiles for each one of the different pieces of that. So if you recall, R is for the quintiles of days since last. And the way you're going to do that is you need to create a lookup table and use index match using the quintiles of days since last as the variable that you get quintiles for. And number of orders, we're going to get the quintiles of that. And we're going to get the quintiles for spending. So for each one of these, we're going to need to do a lookup table. So maybe what we need is a new sheet, and we'll call this additional var calculations, maybe calcs, or you can call it lookup tables or something. So this worksheet, we're going to just give it a little title. This worksheet contains lookup tables, just a little description of what we're doing, used to create new variables in the data. So the first one we're going to be doing is the quintiles of recency. So recency, if you recall, is going to be based on days since last. And if we now switch over so we can see our data side by side. Okay, so we want to do the quintiles of recency, and it's based on days since last. And if we go over here and we look at days since last, and it may take you a second to realize it, but the days since last is the number of days counting backwards. So we actually need to count this, we need to really get the reverse of this. So let's call recency, because we want to go in quintiles, and the larger the number under days since last, the more in the past it is. And we actually want to get quintiles of the more recent. So we're going to say recency, and we're going to say this is just equal to -1 times the days since last. Okay. And this will enable me to be able to get the more recent customers will be higher up. If you think about this as being temperature, the recency being the temperature, the warmer temperature, if you will, closer to now. So we want the quintiles of recency. So here we're just going to go ahead and put in our quintiles. And these quintiles are fifths in our data, and we're just going to name them by which fifth it is. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to need the bin min. So those quintiles are like our bin names. This is going to be bin min and then bin max. Okay. So for our bin min, for our quintiles, we can use the percentile function, percentile inclusive. And from that, we're going to get the recency column. And we'll get the 20th percentile as the 0.2 percentile. The 20th percentile is the first quintile. And if you look at days since last, we actually want to count this in whole numbers. So let's wrap this days since last recency. Let's round this. And I'm just going to put a (0) so I get the whole number out of this. Okay, and now we can copy this down for each of the quintiles. We might as well make this into a table with the window pane option. And now let's change each one of these quintiles. So the first quintile was the 20th percentile. The second quintile is the 40th percentile. The third quintile is the 60th percentile. So 0.6 is what I'm putting up here in my percentile as a decimal. The fourth quintile is the 80th percentile. And then the fifth quintile goes up to the maximum in my data, which I can put in as a 1. Okay, so we see that the most recent customer order was 6 days ago. That's what the -6 is telling us. Okay. In here, we can get the minimum in our data. And we'll see it was -360 days ago. And because we're counting in whole numbers, we know that we're going to go up to the previous bin's maximum and add 1 to it. That's our incremental change based on the precision of our data. So we're going to copy this down. Okay. And now that we've done that, and we have the quintiles in this data, we're going to use the same approach for the F and the M. Using index match to get R, F, and M. And once we have those three, we're going to come in here and we're going to concatenate. So we'll say equals concat. And we're just going to take whatever R is, whatever that turns out to be from our index match, whatever F turns out to be, and whatever M turns out to be. And these are going to get kind of glued together. And right now it's blank because they are blank. But that will be the function that will concatenate the R, F, and M quintiles to create the RFM for the RFM analysis. And if you recall, or if you think about it for a second, F being in the top 20% in each one of these three categories is considered if the RFM analysis from a marketing point of view is considered these are your top 20% of your customers. So we actually would want to we may want to do analysis where we look at the 5 RFM customers. Okay, the RFM average is the average of those scores. So now we're treating these numbers as if they were actually numbers. And that's going to be an average, a ratio with a continuous scale is between 1 and 5. And then we're going to have income bin. This is another binning, right? So after we create our quintiles for DaysSinceLast, we're going to be repeating this, so I can copy this. And we're going to repeat that, but we're going to change this to frequency. So will be number of orders. And then monetary for the M. So we're going to copy this. And here it'll be quintiles of spending 2021, right? And again, this should be all in your analysis plan. So we'll have these 3 lookup tables, and then we're going to need one for income. So this one is quartiles of income. And quartiles have, very distinct, so I'm going to just grab the top 4 of this, names, right? People always refer to them. They're very popular with the, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Okay, so those are going to be our quartiles. And I think we're going to want to change this to be quartile. Okay. And I'll let you work on that one again. Very similar, just reinforcing the skills on how you do these things. All right, the next one that we're going to talk about is membership. So membership was where we wanted to make a bronze, gold, silver, and gold. And we wanted to base that on, I believe it was spending, right? So let's just double check ourselves on that. So we have membership on spending in 2021 is what Catherine Hill asked us to do. And so we'll put that together by determining what those custom cutoffs are going to be. So for membership, we're going to need a custom binning. So that is doing this weird formatting because it's centered. So let's make that left justified so we can see that. All right, so our bin names here are going to be the membership level, right? So here we're going to have bronze, and then we'll have silver, and then we'll have gold. So what we're going to need to do is put it on here. We're going to do custom binning based on spending 2021. All right, so we can look up here at the quintiles of spending and use that to guide us perhaps. So the reason that gave me an error is because I put a little minus sign to give it like a dash. And I like that idea to kind of make like a fake bullet in a sense. So I'm going to go back and put a little single quote and then a minus so that it will actually put that in there. All right, so now I'm going to need the bin min and the bin max. And this is going to be our little lookup table for creating our tiered membership. You know, you can get all fancy on these if you want. You can play around just to build your skills, you know, make the tops of the tables bold, you know, center this, just, you know, however you want to, you know, work on your Excel skills, it's going to always pay off. All right, so we want to come up with what are these custom cutoffs. And like I said, We may want to look at the quintiles and use that perhaps in some sense. Another thing you could do is we could go over here and look at the clean data. I copied it here, so I'm going to look at it here. Spending 2021, and I'm just going to do a histogram. Just kind of the way my brain works is I want to kind of see what I'm looking at in this data. So I have this data, and I'm going to cut this. So I'm going to cut this out of here, and I'm going to move it here. And hopefully that gives me just a little place where I can kind of look at, see what's going on. So what I'm seeing is there's some data that's much lower in a sense. And this, if you recall, is when we're going to be doing a sensitivity analysis. So we're going to hold off on doing these variables differently in each one of the subsets until we know we need to use it and do it. I just don't want you guys to have triple the amount of work right now. So first, we're just going to do anything with spending 2020. We're just going to do it right now without remembering that we have to do a sensitivity analysis. But we will come back full circle and look at that again later. But for right now, we are somewhat going to ignore these 4 outliers. And we'll look at this data and we say, well, it looks like just on this piece here, as if we're really can see maybe what would be a way to bin. So if we want to do that, we can think about different ways. She asked us to propose something, and so that's what we're going to do based on the data, and we'll let her push back if she wants to change it. If we look at spending, it is all the way out to the penny. So when we do these bins, we probably need to be going out to the penny on them. The next one that we're looking at is the race reduction. So race reduction is where we want to, and if we remind ourselves again by looking at the analysis plan, the only ones we want are Black, Hispanic, white, or other. Okay, so there's several ways we can logically program this. So one way we can do this is we can use the if function that, if you recall, the structure for an if function is equals if, and you have a logical test, and then you're going to put what to do if it's true and what to do if it's false. Right now, this is just notes to self. This is not actual coding. If true, this is where we're going to substitute what we do there, and then what we do if false. Okay. So for the logical test, we have to test something about the value of race. And I don't know if I can get them all to fit. Let's see if we can get race and just barely. If I get C on the left over here, I got the column C and I got the function here where I'm trying to build it. So whoops, I don't want that. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so the test I want to say is if this is Black, white, or Hispanic. I wanted to say Black, white, or Hispanic. Now I can do this with a nested test. So let me do this first of all, I'm going to do it the really long way, and then I'm going to do it again, giving us the same answer, but in a much shorter code. And it's just a way to think about this. If you have something like this, you have to do. So I could say if Black, so I'm going to point to this cell over here where race is, and I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to put quotes, Black. And I have to make sure I spell it exactly right, capitalizing what to do. So if that is Black, if that's true, then what I want this to say is just whatever's here. So just give it back to me. If it's Black, go ahead and put it. If it's not, well, then I need to say, now I'm going to nest an if. This is the nested if approach. Then I'm going to say, well, if what's there is white, then I'm just going to get that value right back. If it's not black and it's not white, then what do you do if that's false? Well, then I'm going to say, well, if C2 is equal to Hispanic. All right, so now, then I want it to just give me back whatever is in that cell. Now, I'm purposely building the structure of this function so I can copy it down, and it will give me the right answers. Okay. If you recall, these are the only three we actually want to keep, and we're going to lump everybody else all together into other. All right, so switching back over to the Excel, here I'm just going to put in quotes, other. Okay. Now I have to make sure I have enough closing parentheses. I'm closing the most inner if. Now I'm going to close the second if, and now I have the outer if. So now that I have all of these conditions selected, and I want to make sure you follow the logic on that, you'll see that this should come up back black. All right. And I want to kind of compare these right next to each other. So I'm going to show you another thing you can do when you're working within a worksheet. You can actually select a range of columns. So let's say I select all these columns here. I can right click and hide them. So you notice this now goes from C to X, but I can see right next to each other if I'm getting the right answer. All right, so let me double click this formula and see if it worked. All right, so white, black, that's all working. Asian went to other, that looks good. Unknown went to other. Pacific Islander went to other. So we did successfully program a new variable that only has 4 race categories: black, white, Hispanic, or other. All right, now I'm going to show you another way to program the exact same thing, but does not have all this long, complicated nested ifs, which sometimes can lead to errors, right? Where you have to like figure out where's your missing parentheses or what happened. Okay, so the other way to do this is to kind of flip the logic around. And maybe what we could say, if you're not black, so there's this function called not. So if you're not black, so is C3 equal to black? If that's false, or is C3 equal to white, or is C3 equal to Hispanic? Right? So if it's going to evaluate the inside question, is C3 black? And if it says false, then it's going to turn that to true, because it's going to take, and when you put the word not in front of a logical test, it's going to give you the opposite. So if this comes out to be a true, putting the word not in front of it will turn it into a false. And if what's inside is false, putting the word not in front of it will turn it into a true. Okay, so that's how that function works. And now let's talk through this logic together. If what's in the race cell C3 is not black, if that's true, and it's not white, and that's true, and not Hispanic, and that's true, then we're going to say other. Now the question is, we have to say all of these at the same time have to be true. So we're going to also wrap this with the function and. So it's going to be not black and whatever comes after the comma, not white and not Hispanic. And we're going to close the parentheses on that. All right, so this is another way. Maybe you don't like this. Maybe you prefer the nested if, long chain of nested ifs, and that's fine. This is just a way of saying, okay, if all of these are true, it's not, the cell location is not black and not white and not Hispanic, then we're going to say they're other. Otherwise, we're just going to put what's there. Okay, now because there was only one if, we are able to get away with doing this just by closing one parentheses. All right, now I can double click this and copy this formula down, and we can confirm that it is also working correctly. All right, and then there's yet another way to do this. All right, notice I had to write not in front of all these. If they're not black, and if that cell location is not black and not white and not Hispanic, then they'd be other. There is a logical, for those of you who remember your logic, alternative way to do this. We can say, we can add or, and let me get rid of this part in the front of here. So we can say if the cell is black or C4 is white. So C4 is black or C4 is white or C4 is Hispanic. So if any of those are true, then we're going to keep them, right? So if the cell is black, white, or Hispanic, then we're going to keep whatever's there. So if that's true, we're going to just keep C4. Otherwise, we are going to put other in that cell. Okay, so again, we are using the structure of an if statement that has an if, a test, what to do if it's true, and what to do if it's false. And we're kind of flipping this around a few different ways so you can kind of just learn whatever your brain's logic follows. And that I wanted to introduce you to some of these different functions like and, or, and not. Okay, so now that one worked. So it's because we checked, is this C4 right here black or white or Hispanic? And if any of those are true, then we're going to just copy whatever's there, and then otherwise it's going to be other. So let's just copy that formula down and confirm it works as well. All right, so when we go down here to, so everyone is copying over, but Asian did become other. Pacific Islander also switched to other, so this is working. Okay, so whichever one of those three options works for you, or maybe you even came up with another different way, and there are many variations on how to do this. All right, so let's say we did this, we're like, good, okay, how do I get all those columns back? Well, we're gonna do the bookends. We're gonna select C and X, because these are the two bookends. And I held down the shift key when I clicked on the top of column X, so that I'm inside this little narrow rectangle are all the columns between C and X. So I'm going to right click and choose unhide. And then I get them all back. Okay, so now I've done all of these. And now the only thing left are the dummy variables. All right, so the dummy variables, I'm gonna let you work on those. They are very straightforward applications of the if function as well. So for TV, I'll just do one for you. I would say this is equals if, remember you always either want a 0 or a 1, depending on if it's true or not. So I'm just going to say if, whatever the channel was, if it equals TV, and I'm going to put that in, got to make sure I have the capitalization correct. And I have it in double quotes. If that's true, if whatever's on the channel is TV, I'm going to put a 1 here. Otherwise, it's going to get a 0. And now I have created a TV variable for channel. And if I just double click that little box, you'll see, and again, if you wanted to, you could hide all the columns in between just to put them next to each other. You can hide them, and you'll see that wherever there is a TV, it is giving me a 1 and 0 otherwise. Okay, and then I can unhide these when I'm done. Okay, so that's how you want to proceed to create all the additional variables.